Perfect.
Happy Friday. This is MMA On Air right here on DallasOnAir.com. We are excited to be back. We've had a little bit of break. I am Charlie Vann. Joining me always, my engineer, my producer, Austin Harris. Austin, How are you doing this evening?
Charlie, what's up, man? I'm glad to be back here with you. MMA On Air, Friday nights, 8 to 9.
It's a lot to talk about in MMA, and we're excited because joining us shortly here at 8:10, we will have Mike the Truth Jackson calling in to discuss his upcoming fight against CM Punk at UFC 225 June 9th in Chicago. So really excited about this interview.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hopefully we'll be hearing from him around, 8:10 or so?
About 8:10, he'll be calling in. Of course, Mike fights out of Houston, Texas, and also he does a lot with LFA, does their photography, and we've seen him around every time we've covered LFA here in Dallas, and he does a great job with his photos. And he also has a podcast. We'll talk to him a little bit about that, The Truth About Stuff. You can catch it on his website. There that I'm sure he'll definitely promote out, and he's a very busy guy, but he's been campaigning for this fight against CM Punk, and it's taken a little bit, but he finally got it.
Big fight. That's a big fight.
It's a huge fight. And like I said, we will get into about the fight with him, and I got a chance to catch some of his interview this past Monday with Ariel Helwani, and he had some funny, interesting stories about how he tried to sort of, I don't think entice is the right word, but kind of get this fight in motion, and I'm sure he'll go into some details on that, and we'll get his predictions also on that UFC 225 fight card because it is stacked.
Yeah, holy shit, that is stacked. There's a lot of good fights on that card. It's a bit of ways away, but I'm sure the majority of it, if not all of it, will stay intact. So
well, and knock on wood, because the last time we had a show, which has been a little bit, it was right before UFC 223. And then, we were saying the same thing, and then that one, unfortunately unraveled as we saw. But actually, the co-main event was really good, Joanna and Rhodes. But hopefully this 225, because you got Yoel Romero, Robert Whittaker 2. You have Rafael dos Santos versus Colby Covington and for the interim welterweight title. And then also on that card, you're going to have the UFC debut of Megan Anderson taking on Holm, and this is a very pivotal matchup, featherweight matchup, especially for Megan Anderson, who has been wanting the Cyborg fight. She's a former Invicta FC champion, definitely a tough 145, a true 145, and if she can get through like Holm, who is no easy task.
No, not at all.
That should definitely warrant her a title shot against Cyborg.
Cyborg, yeah.
Especially depending on how Amanda Nunes Raquel Pennington turns out. Because, you can't sleep on Rocky. She could be the spoiler. Very tough. And it also just depends on injuries, on that one. But I think Megan is definitely well deserving of the title shot if she can get through Holly. But don't sleep on Holm, because
never.
Holly's one of the best strikers in MMA, and she's very technical, and she's, this is not an easy debut against for your debut, but if she can make a statement, that being Megan Anderson, man. So yeah, that card is really sick. Also, Fortis MMA fighter who we've had on here, local Dallas guy, Rashad Daywalker Coulter, will also be on that card as well.
On the card, right.
So we're going to try to get him in the studio here soon to get his thoughts on his upcoming fight there in Chicago, and I'm sure he's really excited because every time you're around him, he has a Chicago Bulls baseball cap on, and so I'm sure he's pumped to be there, get this opportunity as well. And actually, real quick before we get Mike the Truth on, we'll make a big announcement here that it broke several hours ago. Francis Ngannou and Derrick Lewis, the talk is over. They're going to finally fight July 6th.
Nice.
International Fight Week. UFC 226, already a big card with Stipe and DC. Now you're going to get the fight that, I know Derrick Lewis has been campaigning for a beginning, and it makes sense. It makes sense, and not because necessarily Francis Ngannou is coming off of a loss, but because Derrick Lewis is coming off a win. So really, you would think that, Derrick maybe wants somebody at the same, but at the same time, this is a super fun fight. Already people like this one's not going the first round.
I seriously doubt it. And yes, that is such an exciting fight.
I have
man.
a small prediction, but it may or may not happen, but I have a small prediction is that you may see Derrick Lewis try to take this to the ground, which he has the ability to do. He has a very underrounded ground game. And I'm not talking necessarily submission, but underrated wrestling. I mean, he fought a guy like if you don't really follow the Rolshaw brothers, Jake Rolshaw used to fight in the UFC, Oklahoma State. Well, Jared Rolshaw, Derrick Lewis has a win over him in Legacy. And I believe it was a TKO. And Derrick Rolshaw was, I believe, an All-American. I would have to look at stats, but he was definitely a standout wrestler in college. So, and we saw what Francis Ngannou had troubles with Stipe. Now, granted, I don't know that Lewis would want to get the fight to the ground. Both of them like to stand and bang. Both of them have power. But that is an option, and I think Derrick Lewis is experienced enough, strong enough, to force a clinch and maybe get that. And then, you don't want Derrick Lewis on top of you.
No,
you don't want either guy. But if Stipe, I think, did lay out the blueprint. What's even interesting, real quick, about Francis, and I'm not trying to chop him down here, is if you go back, he did have a win over Curtis Blades, who we've seen has improved so much, who has a decent wrestling game. I wonder if they were ever to run it back, if things would be different. But you can't sleep on Ngannou because he's still improving. Which those are always dangerous fighters. And sometimes the most dangerous are the ones coming off those learning losses, and they refuel themselves.
And they got that fire, got that recharge,
George St. Pierre.
New batteries.
George St. Pierre, Matt Hughes won. Mm-hmm. It was a first-round armbar finish by Matt Hughes. George St. Pierre changed I wouldn't say changed everything, but it lit a fuel, and he was unstoppable until Matt Serra, and then even after that. But just that first champion where was he ready for the champion, and then he came back. So I think, Ngannou's only like 31, 32, so he's for heavyweights, it's still good. So you can't count on anyone. It's a fun fight.
Man, yeah, that's so exciting. Is that
that is 226.
226.
So
okay.
I don't know if it's going to be a co-main event or just on the card. I'm guessing. I haven't heard anything. It's just my speculation. They would probably shoot for that featherweight bout between Holloway and Ortega if it can happen for co-main event. That's what I'm thinking. That would be best scenario possible. Just because, let's say hypothetically, injuries happen. I hope that whole card stays intact. But if something. That's still a good main event between Holloway and Ortega, and a fight that was, it's already, it could headline any other card. That's what I'm trying to say.
Easily, yeah.
So
that's a fun scrap too.
But Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou, this is exciting. So it's been a good year so far, I feel, for the UFC. Granted, past 223, but Ala Quinta, I think, saved the day and he stepped up. That's the thing. And he did not back down. And he did not, in my opinion, he didn't get completely dominated. Those last few rounds, like Joe Rogan said, were very telling of Khabib. Now, I'm not saying, necessarily all holes will explode, but, there's some rawness with Khabib's striking. And, the other guys could probably, exploit more capitalized, like a Tony Ferguson and definitely a Conor, even a Dustin Poirier, and we'll get into that Glendale recap after we talk to Mike Jackson a little bit later on. But so it's been an exciting time, especially lightweight division. But I am excited though for Mike Jackson. He will be calling in here very shortly and get his thoughts about his fight on CM Punk and just the welterweight division a whole. It's a very exciting time, very interesting time. We do have Wonder Boy Thompson taking on Darren Till. I still don't think that's getting a lot of publicity, and it's happening next month in Liverpool. And easily one of those guys could easily be right there but close in line.
With depending on what happens with that interim,
those are
unify that.
Well, those are number one, but you got to always have the next. I mean, you always got to have someone that's prepared for injury in that. And I think this Thompson Darren Till, although I don't know if we're ready necessarily to see hypothetically a Thompson Woodley 3.
No, I'm not.
But a Darren Till Tyron Woodley would be very interesting.
Could be interesting, most definitely.
New, but. And it's an interesting time for the welterweight division. Yeah, it feels like it's a little on a stand hold.
What do you think is going to happen with Carlos Condit?
You know,
that's
good
one of his
question. You know, he did suffer his, I believe, 4th loss in a row. And you know, though, but he had moments where he was looking good in that first round.
He had his trouble in that first round.
He had his back. It looked like old Carlos, but you know, he got caught. He got actually rocked with, I believe it was an up kick or he got caught. I would have to look back, but he got caught with a kick, which dazed him. I'm pretty sure that kind of led to that guillotine. And you know, Oliveira is a strong guy. If you've ever grappled before and you have someone who just has a really strong grip and they apply that guillotine, I'm sorry, man, you're close to going out. It's tough. You're gonna try and fight it, but you can only fight for so long. And there's just some people who have the grip. But honestly, a really good, solid guillotine is very tough to get out of. Not very many people can do it. Of course, you see Ortega and his guillotine. Faber for years had a crushing guillotine.
Yeah, a lot of those guys from Team Alpha Male.
But yeah, I mean, but I do think the strike led to probably that setup. If you're dazed, I mean, it's hard, but. And you know, he's cut, the blood is flowing there, and that can play a factor too. I mean, that is actually, if you get choked, right, any choke, but especially that, the squeezing, just think right up there on the top of your brain, you know, your head right there. So already you're pumping your pulse and that. So just a very uncomfortable position. But you know, I'm never gonna say for someone to quit, especially if he had just gone out there and got laid out in the first round or embarrassed in that, you know, I would have been like, okay, maybe. But he had some fight. He showed some. He got caught, actually. He got caught, and then, you know, he got caught in the guillotine, and Cowboy, who's so dangerous and been on the radar for a long time, capitalized on that. I maybe would like to see at least, you know, one more fight. Somebody said maybe still do the Matt Brown fight, but who knows when Matt Brown will be back just based on the knee.
Fight.
On the knee. I mean, I think there's some interesting still fights you can do. I mean, you still have Yancy Medeiros. I think that would be a fun fight for Carlos.
Who did he just get booked with, though?
He just got booked with Mike Perry.
Mike Perry,
yeah.
That's right.
So if somebody mentioned, you know, Carlos coming at Mike Perry, but that would be, you know, I still think either one of those guys, or maybe
either one,
maybe the loser or winner of that. Although, you know, Mike's definitely, both of those guys need an equal win because they're both coming off losses, but. I just, you know, for Carlos Condit, and maybe it's just the fan of Condit and me and, you know, his WEC days and that. And,
man, yeah, he's always brought it, man. He's always been really exciting.
Because here we go. So we're going to go to the phone right now. We have Mike Jackson on the other line. Mike, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
All pretty good. And we're saying here we're excited to have you on, and thank you for giving us this time tonight.
No worries, man.
And so, yeah, so we're really pumped. This is a big fight. You versus Phil Brooks, a.k.a. CM Punk, June 9th in Chicago. When did this fight – I know you've been, you know, wanting this fight for quite some time. When was it made to you official that this was going to happen?
It was made official. Sean Shelby, cousin Sean, gave me a call. What was it, last week, I think. It was a few days after Dana had spoken to TMZ about it when they asked him. It was a few days after that. And then, you know, that we made everything official. You know, we sent over the contracts, and, you know, now it's time to boogie.
Now, when you got that call, were you beaming pretty bright, or did you have to kind of keep it a secret too? When were you allowed to also, you know, notify, you know, media, friends, family that this was going to happen?
Actually, they released it. I let the UFC release it. You know, for me, I knew it was coming. You know, this is the fight, you know, that made sense. It was the only fight that made sense. It was the fight that should have happened to begin with. But, you know, you have to have a nice storyline. And then again, you gotta make money. You maximize your profits, you know. And so this was sort of the right path to take. And so for me, it wasn't necessarily a surprise. It was just a matter of time for me.
Do you think if this fight hadn't been going down in Chicago that it may take a little bit to get CM Punk back into the octagon? I mean, it's been since almost 2 years since we last saw him.
I don't think this is something that Phil necessarily wants to pursue as far as a career goes. I think this is just a bucket list type of adventure for him. And Chicago only made, you know, that made the most sense. You know, I can only speculate and say that the Chicago card was booked based on CM Punk or Phil Brooks alone, but, you know, who knows?
And it is, a very, I say stylistically interesting match. But, I think, with you have so much experience from the combat, from the boxing. That's the big question mark coming, on his side. What is he going to do? What can he do different? What can he bring to the table? Like you said, it's he's 36 years old. Not that he's old, but this is, jumping into a sport midway in your 30s is not an easy task, and we haven't seen much of him since then. I know you've been active, I know you've competed in both boxing and kickboxing since your last fight in the UFC, but we haven't seen anything from him. Do you see a really huge question mark, or are you expecting to be surprised at all?
I'm expecting the best Phil Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
We really didn't get to see anything from him against the Mickey Gall fight, but I'm just going to assume, he made for me, it was more the reflexes. He didn't have the reflex to stop the takedown. We don't know what he has as far as his striking abilities, so for us, it's still a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And I would only assume that he's got better since then. So for me, I'm expecting the best Phil Brooks that we've ever seen.
Now, I know I got a chance to actually this past Monday catch you on the MMA Hour, and you had a lot to say, obviously, about the fight, and that you plan on stopping him. You plan on knocking him out. Do you like to kind of make predictions on how you're going to knock people out? What combination? Where do you see the most openings? Yeah, we didn't get to see too much of him last time, but where do you feel like you're going to catch him on the feet?
I literally can catch him anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that my style of boxing is perfect for MMA, especially with the small gloves.
Mm-hmm.
My offense is just it's going to be hard to stop the precision striking that I have. Look, I'm a precision striker with the 10-ounce boxing gloves on.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to have a smaller glove to reach my targets. So I think it's really going to be dangerous for him. For me, I'm just going I want to put on display my striking abilities for the world to see. So for me, personally, in all my boxing matches if you go back and look at my record, you're going to see a lot of twos on those rounds, and it's because I just enjoy second round knockouts.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's the first round is more of taking all the data in, seeing what as far as like your offensive striking. Obviously, the MMA is going to be different, but in boxing, that's my strategy. I calculate all the data and your movement in the first round, and then between rounds, I diagnose it. Second round, I go for the finish. Unless, with an exception, there was this one guy I really didn't like. So I went to the third round and knocked him out, but that was just because I didn't like the guy. I legit didn't like. No one liked this guy. So I was doing everyone a favor. But for me, and it also depends on how I feel in the fight. I'm calling the second round right now. I may get in there, and in the second round, I was like, nah, I want to punch this guy some more, and it's time. So it really goes into how I'm feeling that night. And again, as I listen to myself say this, and I was like, man, I sound really cocky now. But it's not necessarily a cocky thing. It's like.
Sorry, it looks like the phone is breaking out for a second.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. What I was saying is it's not me trying to be cocky here. My work speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at my striking in boxing, the knockouts are there. So to think that I can't knock out Phil Brooks, who has limited fighting experience, it's silly that people would think that. It's like if you put an amateur boxer in with Floyd Mayweather, you would expect Floyd Mayweather to dust this guy. And so if Floyd Mayweather goes out there and he's, man, I'm going to smack this dude around, he's not going to touch me, this, that, and the other, and this guy, has no professional fights, you would assume that Floyd is just being honest. And for me, that's all this is. Look, there is no disrespect to CM Punk or Phil Brooks or, whoever steps into the cage. There's going to be no disrespect. I'm just stating facts.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he'll try to clinch with you at all, or try to force a clinch? Try to kind of force, maybe get this against the cage. Are you expecting any of that, or do you think he maybe shoot it?
That's his plan A.
Mm-hmm.
That is his plan A. So plan B for him is to stand and strike.
Mm-hmm.
That's all his play. There's plan A and there's plan B. And plan A, he won't get me to the ground. He won't get me on the cage. My footwork is too good for him. My reflexes are too good. I'm too quick. I'm too fast. So it's just it's one of those things where people can't physically do certain things, you know. And just look at Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey, although how good she is at her craft, Ronda Rousey can't shoot a power double. Her body physically can't do that, you know. And I feel the same thing about Phil Brooks. It's like his body has been deteriorated from professional wrestling, that there are limitations of what he can do. And when I don't see this guy being able to shoot a double, he's going to have to, I don't want to say he's going to hit the Frankenstein, but he's going to have to reach and grab. And when he reaches and grabs, I'm going to touch him up nice.
And do you think, you know, even that, you know, he had before that Mickey Gall fight, I believe he had that knee injury too. You think that could maybe play a factor a little bit? I mean, it's been, about 2 years, but knee injuries are not something that just technically always heal overnight. They can linger on.
Knee injuries, back injuries, you know, he had back surgery, all of. And that's the thing is, like, these people or fans who are trying to criticize me for being cocky or whatever, like, they're not factoring other variables that are playing an important role. Look, if you have back surgery, that's a major surgery. It's back surgery. Like, what do you expect? Not to say that he's not 100%, because I don't know, but again, he had back surgery. So imagine how much downtime wasn't getting better during that downtime. You know, so that's all this is. Again, it's no disrespect, but I'm factoring in all of these other variables that other people aren't.
Now, you mentioned a little bit ago about the difference with gloves, and just for anybody, you know, people tuning in, just talk about that difference. You're coming from, 10-ounce gloves, or even when you're sparring, you have 16-ounce gloves, to those little gloves, and how a big factor and change that can be, and especially even if you're making your MMA debut and you're used to just training and sparring with bigger gloves, and then you actually get hit with one of these 4-ounce gloves. Just talk about that difference there, and how much of, maybe even a shock to the system it can be.
Man, it's not, let's not even talk about the power difference, but just people's defense, your defense changes. Is because you have smaller gloves that can fit in smaller spots, So, everything is different, and it's just one of those, I don't feel that he's prepared for this level of competition.
Do you think he should have taken a possible amateur or at least a pro fight outside of the UFC? Even though Brock Lesnar had this high-level wrestling.
Right, and a lot of people like to bring that up. But here's the thing. So I have to look at this.
Sorry, it looks like go ahead. Sorry, it looks like the phone was cutting out one more time.
Yeah, no, logical way to go. But for him, this isn't. That's the way you go. If this is something that you're going to pursue as a career or even just a passion, you want to get out there, compete as an amateur, and then follow up in the pro leagues. This is not the path that he's chosen. For my theory on this is simply a bucket list kind of accomplishment for him. So if that's your goal, just to do something that you enjoy doing, I genuinely feel that he enjoys MMA. As a fan, as a fighter, he enjoys the training aspect of it. Because if you don't, you wouldn't be doing this at that age and at this level. You understand? So this is just something that he wants to do. This isn't something where he's trying to create a path. And again, you have to look at the value his name brings. You're not gonna that does nothing for you for fighting for free as an amateur. You have to get your money's worth. You have to understand your brand's value, and you have to get your money's worth.
Do you think possibly this could be maybe the last time we see him locked on? Do you think
this will be unless the dude is just, well, to be honest with you, I think after June 9th, this will be the end of the UFC stint. Now, he could prove me wrong and say, you know what, I really want to give a shot at this, and then we can put him on the LFA card. I'm affiliated with them. I can, I know the matchmaker. Look, I would make the match, if that's what he chooses to do. But to be honest with you, I don't think that's his path. I think this is, again, something he just wanted to try out, cross off his list, and come June 9th, June 10th, once he wakes up the next morning, he's going to look, man, all right, I tried it. It was cool. What's next? And then that's it for it.
Well, I
feel that's going to be it.
And I want to ask you, because you've made the transition from boxing to MMA. Do you see more boxers? You've seen some boxers talk about it, obviously, sort of on the, kind of the big scale. And we saw, James Toney kind of tried that one time with Randy Couture. But do you think we're going to see more boxers making the transition to mixed martial arts? And what do you?
No, well, see, for me, although like I come from boxing is my background, I actually, as far as competition goes, I started with MMA. But as far as boxers transitioning over here and there, but again, these are two different sports. This is like asking a rugby player if he's going to go play football or soccer. You know, two different sports, two different styles, and really, it's two different types of cultures and upbringings. Each sport's gonna attract different kinds of people. You understand? So I don't think we're necessarily gonna see a huge crossover for boxing. I think maybe in 5 to 10 years we'll see more pro boxers probably try it out than we currently do. But I think that's the extent of it.
It is interesting, though. We have seen some, though, MMA fighters make a little bit of a crossover. I know, Joe Duffy did for a while, did for a little bit. Chris Lytle did for a while. Of course, that was sort of early, and not early MMA days, but before the UFC, before there was any chance at really making money in that. And they had a little bit of an extent, I believe, but I could be wrong, that didn't Nick Diaz have a boxing, or he was in pursuit of boxing?
Well, they were trying. They were in pursuit of one, but it never happened.
And what drew you to fighting in general, to boxing, to kickboxing in general?
What was the question?
What drew you? What initially got you into fighting?
For me, I just enjoy the sport. I really can't explain it. As a kid growing up, I enjoyed pro wrestling. I enjoyed boxing. I enjoyed karate. I never competed as a kid. I didn't start competing until I was an adult. But for me, it was just, whether it be the violence, whether it be the human chess match, I honestly couldn't tell you. I was just drawn to fighting, and I made a career out of it. Well, I should say I made a career in the industry of fighting.
When you were younger, if you had the opportunity to learn mixed martial arts, do you think you would have taken that advantage? When you go to even some of these LFA crowds, because we cover a lot here in Dallas, you do see kind of a young crowd a lot, and you kind of see that interest in MMA compared to maybe even like a karate. I grew up from a Taekwondo background, and I see more kids now, more youth get involved with actually jiu-jitsu and that. Do you think you would have kind of taken upon if that opportunity was presented when you were younger?
I do. Me, my mother probably wouldn't let me do it. And I like to joke with her.
Sorry, the phone's cut out one more time.
I was saying, for me as a kid, it was more my mother preventing me from competing. Half jokingly, I'd always tell her I became a fighter because you wouldn't let me do karate as a kid. So if she would allow me to do it, then for sure, I would have taken part of it.
It's kind of like when I just remember when Power Rangers came on, and some parents were like, "No, you cannot watch Power Rangers or anything like that," because they thought it was. I
actually watched it, and just so happens that as an adult, I became friends with my favorite Power Ranger, so it worked out.
Who's your favorite Power Ranger?
The Green Ranger.
Oh, Jason. Well, and he's now there in Houston now. I know that.
Yeah. And that's how we, became cool.
That's always got to be a cool childhood. You befriend, the Green Power, any one of the Power Rangers. I mean, that's awesome there. And they kind of help set the tone with, I think martial arts and youth. But, getting back to, you've been a, very, very busy guy. We're talking about this before we had you on, that not only you're a fighter, but you have your podcast, The Truth About Stuff, really good podcast, but you're also a photographer, and you've done a lot of photography with LFA. How did you get into photography?
As a kid, it's funny to say. I'm actually at a wedding. I'm at a wedding right now shooting. But as far as photography, man, it was just something I picked up a camera as a kid, and I was just always, I didn't really I didn't take film class or photography class. I just picked up a camera, Then as I got into the fighting world, I kind of took that love for photography into that world, and now we're here, and I feel that I'm one of the best combat sports photographers in the game.
And what's always I feel interesting about photography, it always tells a story. Photos always tell a story in some way. Is that what kind of captivates you too?
That's for, especially because I have a method as far as when I post fight photos. But when I post a photo, my image is to show the story of the fight. It's not just random photos. Story of a fight. There be someone dominating a fight and coming, or getting dominated and coming back, or vice versa, whatever it is.
And I have to ask too, what is your, and you've probably had many great memories of taking fight photos. What's your favorite fight that you had the privilege, the honor of taking a photo of?
Hundreds of thousands, maybe, of fights. I really couldn't. Let me see, if there are 12 fights, average 12 fights on the card. Yeah, I'm at least in 1,000 fights I've shot.
I'll tell you what was an exciting fight that I remember from LFA. It was from LFA 1, Steven Peterson versus Leandro Hidgo.
Man, that's a good fight. I look, Steven Peterson's my guy, and I love when he fights, man. He always gives me the best images, whether it's him all bloody up or whether he's doing some damage. I enjoy shooting Steven Peterson.
I mean, I don't think there was a person sitting still during that fight. I just remember that. I was like, man, if you're a photographer, this is exciting, and you're trying to catch every angle of it.
Yeah, man. That was a great.
And lastly, I want to go back to the fight card 225 because we always like to ask our guests on their fight cards their prediction. And UFC 225 is so stacked, and that's another exciting element, I'm sure, for you as well. Who do you predict in that main event rematch between Robert Whittaker and Yoel Romero?
I don't know, but it's going to be a great fight. I enjoy both fighters. He's a specimen. Mm-hmm. Whittaker, he's a tough, grindy dude. And, I mean, he doesn't really look like it. When you think like the champions and they're like, you don't expect Robert Whittaker to be up there, but he is, man. He's that good. So, I'm excited about seeing the fight. I'm glad that I'm opening up that pay-per-view card. And, man, it's going to be a great night. As far as who I think wins, the fans.
Yeah.
That's who wins.
And we wanted to confirm that, too. So you will be opening the pay-per-view card, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, man. Truth and fun, man. We got to kick it off.
And then the co-main event is interesting. I don't feel like it's got a lot of attention, but of course, RDA versus Colby Covington. Now, we're scratching our heads about the whole interim title, but it's happening nonetheless. I think the matchup in myself is just intriguing, even without the belt. Who do you see that winning, especially since it's in your division?
Man, I like RDA, man. And now when Colby, I think his mouth got him in a position that it may not be able to work out too well for him, So I like RDA in this fight, and I think he takes it.
And then it was announced also Megan Anderson will finally see her debut against Holly Holm. I mean, not an easy at all introduction, but you can only imagine that if Megan happens to pull it off, this could be a path to Cyborg, which she's been wanting.
Man, I really don't know if she really wants that smoke from Cyborg. But, this is a great fight. We haven't seen Megan in quite a bit. What has it been, 2 years, a couple years? How long has it been?
It's been almost 2 years since her last Invicta. So, for me, Holly Holm, I've been a fan of hers since I was introduced to her on the Legacy circuit. I've seen her do some spectacular things live in person. Very similar to the Ronda Rousey knockout. I saw her do that to 2 other chicks prior. So even in the Ronda Rousey fight, I called that fight. I remember interviewing Coach Wink, years before that fight, and he was talking about it. Like 2 years before it happened, he was talking about it, and just stylistically, it made sense that Holly would win. But we've seen Holly against lower level competition, and we've seen her, eke out decisions. So. It's all about styles making fights, and we just don't know when Megan is going to show up because we don't know how she's developed as a fighter. But I feel just knowing what we know about both fighters, I'm going to have to go with Holly Holm in this. And, and like you said, that experience could play a lot. And, Holly's one of the most crafty veterans out there. I still put her down as one of the best strikers in MMA, especially in women's MMA. And you mentioned some of those legacy fights. I was there for one of them. It was a liver kick to the body. If you've never been... It was in an Allen.
Little short shit.
Yeah, it was an Allen Event Center. Yeah. I was sitting so close to it. I saw it, and I was just like, if you've never been hit to the body.
I remember the Allen Event Center. I hate that drive, though. I love love the Bomb Factory. So close, man.
Bomb Factory is great, and I just think being around in the Deep Ellum area downtown, it's easier for fans to get to. There's a lot around there, and it kind of I mentioned a couple of shows ago. It kind of reminds me of the old WEC days when they were at the Hard Rock, just how intimate and personal were with the fans and the fighters there, and I think it's a great venue. But Mike, we want to thank you again for taking your time and have fun at that wedding, and anything you want to say to your friends, family out there, and fans?
Nah, man. For me, again, guys, you can catch me on catch the podcast at MikeTheTruth.com/podcast. Of course, on iTunes and all that. It's The Truth About Stuff. That's the name of it. And then, of course, all on social media at The Truth Jackson, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook.
Well, we would love to have you definitely sometime live in studio.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you.
All right, you have a good one. That was Mike the Truth Jackson taking on Phil Brooks, a.k.a. CM Punk, UFC 225, June 9th in Chicago. And, man, that is an exciting card. And
awesome, man.
An exciting
whole card. Indeed, it is awesome, man.
Well,
some great fights on there.
Let's take a little quick break, and then we'll
definitely.
We'll break down and recap UFC Glendale. Welcome back here at MMA On Air, and we want to thank again Mike the Truth Jackson for calling in. Once again, we are excited for that fight against CM Punk and UFC 225. We can't wait for that card.
Stacked card, cannot wait.
Well, I'll tell you what was an exciting fight card was last Saturday's UFC Glendale. We kind of talked about the Carlos Condit loss, but how about that main event between Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje? Another potential fight of the year for Justin Gaethje.
Oh, my God, man. Gaethje, his Terminator style is always entertaining to watch. That fight was awesome, man. Him and Poirier poured it on each other, and man, Dustin was just able to keep his striking crisp and batter him up and take those leg kicks from Gaethje and weather, the storm, if you will. But Poirier, man, he put it together and took him out.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, earlier in the fight, I mean, Gaethje looked like he was having some success with those leg kicks. You can definitely tell they were taking a hold on Dustin. But, I think just with Dustin's experience, just his ferocity and his punches. I mean, they took a toll on Gaethje, and then he was, of course, finally able to put Gaethje away. Also, there were some early eye pokes that you could tell were affecting Dustin, which felt like deja vu again with Eddie Alvarez. Nothing that I think was on purpose, but it's not something you want to see stopped. And you could tell Dustin Poirier didn't want that. He even mentioned that, and, I didn't want.
Yeah, no doctors.
And he also didn't want Gaethje to have any kind of rest either, because when you're having 5 minutes, your opponent's resting just right there with you. Because Gaethje, like you said, has a Terminator style. Of course, that's what's controversial now more about him, because this is 2 losses in a row.
It is.
And he is a standout wrestler and
never uses it.
And has used it somewhat in his old World Series of Fighting.
Right.
But he hasn't used it thus far in
not one bit.
In the UFC. So, the question is now, will he go back to that a little, at least somewhat, in his next fight? Because you can't have, 3 losses in a row. Although UFC loves these guys that just bring it every time, and, those fight of the night performances. But for his safety and well-being, he is the highlight, but he doesn't want to become a highlight. He doesn't want to be the end of that. And so far, unfortunately, he has been in his last 2 fights. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, it's got to be up there as an early contender for fight of the year. Also next to Ocho and Brendan Davis.
Yes.
That fight night was a battle.
That was a war, yeah. That was definitely a fucking war.
But in regards to Dustin Poirier, another big win for him, and he wants the title shot against Khabib.
Yeah, what do you think's next for him?
Well, Khabib's manager, said it's either going to be Conor or Dustin. And here's the thing: it makes more sense for me right now for Dustin. I know Conor, it's the high profile fight, it's the big money fight, but with all his legal troubles right now, we don't know where that's going to happen. I don't even know if they can really make that fight happen. Within this year, maybe end of the year. But here's the thing.
Maybe.
Like, you got Dustin ready to go. If I was Khabib, I would take that fight, not because, by no means do I mean, Dustin's easy in that, but I'm just saying, you want to kind of stay active. Here's another thing. If you can get a title defense under that belt, because there's an asterisk to his win. Don't get me wrong. He won fair and square, but he won against a guy who could not win the belt. So it's kind of like Yoel Romero and Luke Rockhold.
Right.
But, if he beats Dustin Poirier, he legitimately has a title defense with a legit contender. Props to Ala Quinta again for stepping up and taking that fight.
Yeah, on what, 1 day?
On 1 day. But
Dustin
Poirier is a very dangerous threat, especially standing up. Of course, if Khabib can get to the ground, it's his show. Of course, we know that. But at least by him facing Dustin, that is a legit contender. If we're not going to get Conor, fight Dustin, because I don't think you can throw in Eddie Alvarez, because Dustin, we were both there. I mean, Dustin had a control of that fight against Eddie, it was a controversial, and he got DQ'd. So I don't know. And
I do not want to see. Eventually, I want to see them run that fight back and get a rematch in. But Dustin even, I think, said maybe on Ariel's show or on a recent interview that he's not looking for revenge. He's looking for the title.
Yeah, and I don't think the Eddie fight's gonna happen. I think what you're probably gonna see is probably more likely. I think Dustin will get his wish. I think you'll probably see that fight maybe September, October, because I just think with Conor, the legal stuff, who knows?
It's gonna take time for Conor to come back.
It's gonna take time, and it has to be on the right terms, the right money, the right place. Maybe 2019, I don't know. And, especially with Ferguson out, Ferguson will be out at least another 6 months. He's definitely probably not fighting this year. Most likely not. He'll probably fight next year. But, and we'll even see with Conor, because I kind of think this fight could have already happened, by now. But it, either way.
So we might be seeing Khabib and Poirier. What do you think happens to Gaethje? Who do you think he should fight? Maybe Tony Ferguson?
I think Gaethje should wait for the fight of Edson and Kevin Lee tomorrow night.
Or the winner of tomorrow night. There you go.
Either winner or loser, either way could be that fight. Or he should look at also, I don't know, because, I don't see him fighting anyone outside of the top 10, personally. I just don't. I mean, there's some guys outside the top 10 that maybe. He may look at, because tomorrow night, Dan Hooker is fighting, and he's on I think, a 2-fight win streak. But I don't think, he would fight I just don't think he'll fight someone on that level. I think he would want a top 10 or close to top 7 guy. So, yeah, maybe the winner or loser, probably the loser. Though, what would be a fun fight? Paul Felder versus Justin Gaethje.
Or James Vick.
James Vick. That's one.
He's surging, though, right?
Yeah, well, they're both. Well, James Vick's surgeon. He, and actually in an interview, in a pre-Glendale interview, Justin did call out James Vick for James Vick, kind of calling him out, or he said he was whining and complaining. Although, that would be an exciting fight for James Vick. That may be happening. That could. But, we'll see.
At the very least, you got to have
It's a dangerous fight.
James Vick's name's in the top,
He's got a bit. And maybe Paul Felder, James Vick. That could be a very interesting. Although Paul Felder isn't ranked. But or maybe you have.
Yeah, James Vick won't want to take that fight.
Yeah, I think the Justin Gaethje makes a lot of sense. Or maybe give James Vick the winner of this Kevin Lee and Edson Barboza. I kind of more like when two guys are coming off wins fight each other. It makes it more. Don't get me wrong. I think James Vick, Justin Gaethje is a very interesting matchup and could be another fight of the night or that. But I would like to see James Vick, fight someone that's in more now of a contender status if he's going to really get up there, and the winner of tomorrow night has a lot closer shot. Or maybe, and this is a wild guess, but maybe you get an Eddie Alvarez, James Vick. If I was James Vick, that's who I would be calling right now.
Man,
if they look like they're locking Dustin Poirier, because here's the thing, Eddie. Yeah. Because he trains in the, he's trained with Nick Catone and all of that. So Eddie Alvarez is not going to fight Edson Barboza, so. But James Vick is there, and if you want to climb quickly, you fight Eddie Alvarez, and James Vick has some dangerous boxing.
So, yeah, James Vick on MMA Junkies rankings. They got Vick at 10, Chiesa 9, Lee 8, Barboza 7, Gaethje 6, Poirier 5, Alvarez 4. Conor, Tony, and Khabib rounding out the top 3.
Or here's the thing,
all of those dudes are fucking killers.
And even if they don't do Chiesa Pettis again, you could do redo that. You can have Justin Gaethje versus Pettis. That would be an exciting. Both guys coming off losses, or Justin Gaethje even Michael Chiesa, because he's coming off a loss as well. His last fight was Kevin Lee. So
man, if we could only be the UFC match.
Well, but that's a good time to have when you have so many potential great fights to make. It just makes that stock go up, especially the lightweight division. But yeah, we'll see what happens with the Dustin Poirier. I honestly, I've been following Dustin's career since WC. I really, as a featherweight. It'd be good to see him get the shot. Of course, I'm not opposed to the whole Conor and the line. Obviously, there's a storyline there. But, Dustin Poirier, I think, makes a little more sense now, especially with everything going on. And at least he has that legit contender, and the asterisk will be gone, in my opinion, if Khabib fights him. And speaking of Edson and Kevin Lee, tomorrow night is Atlantic City.
Let's go over some of that card.
So a little controversy. Kevin Lee misses weight, comes in at 157. He said out of all of his wrestling matches and fights, he's never missed weight. He's had some struggles with weight, but he's never, and he, for a while, he's been campaigning for 165. Well, he finally officially missed weight.
Yeah. 165, man, that gap between 155 and 170, that could 165, it could have some interesting matchups there,
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's a lot, there's even talks about, what if GSP were able to go down and meet that way, you could have maybe a Conor GSP or that. Or something like that. But the point is with Kevin Lee, this does not look good. Of course, that puts more pressure on you to go out and win because he's already had to forfeit over 20% of his purse to Edson Barboza. And, Here's the thing with this fight, stylistically, and here's my pick. I'm still going to side with Kevin Lee. Here's the thing. Edson Barboza is a very high-level, dangerous striker, but we've seen him with not just Khabib, but even Tony Ferguson. He has trouble with strong grapplers, wrestlers, and that is what Kevin Lee is. If I was Kevin Lee, I would watch the Tony Ferguson fight. Not so necessarily the Khabib, because he just has a whole different kind of smothering, but definitely the Tony was able to get that submission. And honestly, I think Tony's was a little more dominant in the sense of the finish on Edson. Edson's not an easy guy to put away or that. And I can actually see Kevin Lee ending this in maybe the third round or that, either rear naked choke or TKO.
Man, I can see either of those as well, but man, I just want Barboza to get flashy kick.
Another Terry Edom roundhouse kick,
or roundhouse
which
kick,
which is crazy. I mean, that is one of the best knockouts in UFC history.
Easily.
Well,
I
think
that like 3-4 times this week alone.
To me, that competes with also the Yves Edward Josh Thompson knockout that was crazy.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, yeah, Edson's dangerous. If it stays on the face, he's very dangerous.
That flying knee he got against Dariush.
Oh yes, that was
brutal.
Yeah, I mean he can do it. I mean he can definitely pull it off. I mean, but I just think Kevin Lee, just his pressure and his wrestling is just gonna be a little overwhelming. So I got Kevin Lee. A late round finish. I'm just gonna say that.
Cool.
I mean, it could go this, but I mean, I think he really needs to make a statement also to make up for not making that weight. But
yeah, I agree.
But anyways, I got that co-main event.
Real quick, sorry, I'll take. I'm gonna take Barboza.
You're gonna take Barboza.
Barboza, second round TKO.
Yeah, it can definitely happen.
Just throwing it out there.
it can definitely happen. He's got dangerous leg kicks too. So I mean, if he can take that out, and you got to wonder with the weight cut in that. I mean, it's possible. Edson's very dangerous. I mean, like I said, I can go back and forth on all day on either one has a I could see a prediction for either one being correct. So co-main event, Frankie Edgar, the rematch against Cub Swanson, and to me this is a little alarming. Although I've always been a fan of Frankie and I like Cub Swanson as well. But here's the thing, Frankie's coming off of a knockout loss only a month ago. Usually you see like a 60-day suspension.
That was only a month?
Only a month.
Wow.
It was March, that first weekend in March.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of, for me, it's a little alarming because, I mean, you've seen this before where some guys have rushed back a little bit too soon and they get clipped again.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is definitely a must-win for both fighters. And sure, yeah, Cub's coming off a loss too, but he's not coming off of a knockout loss. And you just got to wonder, if Frankie gets touched again, if he gets clipped again, if it could happen.
Did they both just lose to Ortega?
They both lost to Ortega. So they do have that storyline. But, I think the knockout was a little more dramatic, and because nobody's done that to Frankie, but Frankie's taken a lot of shots over the years, but that was huge. And when it's a flash knockout like that, you just got to wonder.
Yeah.
I saw somebody on Twitter saying something about Michael Bisping coming back against Kevin Gastelum. The thing is, he was submitted. He was dropped. That is true. But, you could still continue on from getting dropped. But having a flash KO where your head hits the canvas and you're out for a few seconds, that's when your brain, you usually get the suspension there.
Mm-hmm. That's a fun rematch, though, man. That
it is
first
a fun
fight that they had in Austin in, 2014 – Frankie Edgar got like a last-second submission, I think.
His fifth round rear naked choke.
Man.
Pretty much standing. Cub was kind of crouched on the ground, but he was busted open. I mean,
I was there, and that was amazing when he finished that late. The energy in the crowd was awesome.
Frankie's one of the best in the game.
Easily.
And here's the thing. My prediction is I think he will get it done. I think you're going to see the old Frankie. I think he's not going to waste any time here. I think he's going to get that wrestling going. I think actually, he knows. I think he's going to utilize that grappling, and I think I can easily see him pulling off another submission again. I just think you're going to see more of an urgency, not like an urgency like he's going to, get reckless, but I mean, he was embarrassed, I mean, both were, but his was a little more out there and mean, picture and he needs to make a statement. Both guys do, but I think
they both definitely do.
He's 36 years old. I think it's time, this is it. If he loses this, I mean, you just got to wonder. He's not going to drop any weight classes. He's not even really that outsized here. So, but I do see him winning this fight.
I'll take Edgar. Man, I want to see a knockout or a submission, but I'm going to take a decision.
And I've seen that more predicted, and that's very well. I mean, I think his boxing is still so crisp in the way he makes his angles, but he can mix in his takedowns, and that's very easy. I know he's going to definitely want to make some. He may even get a TKO. He could. He has the ability to. He put away Gray Maynard. He put away BJ Penn, but I see definitely Frankie walking away the victor. Who else is on this card as well? Jim Miller, Dan Hooker. Jim Miller is on like a 3-4 fight losing streak right now, or 3-fight losing streak. And Dan Hooker's kind of sometimes hot and cold. I may go with Hooker on this one. I may go stoppage for Hooker. He beat Mark DeCasey, submitted him late round. That was actually good back and forth fight. And then he's also, I'm trying to think who else. My mind goes blank, but I know he's on like a 2-fight win streak right now. Jim Miller is a crafty veteran, been around, got dangerous submissions himself. He's a grinder.
He's been in there a bunch of times too.
So, and he's pulled off some upsets and that. So,
David Branch, Thiago Santos.
That's a good one. I've heard people talking about that. I was listening to UFC Unfiltered this morning. They were talking about that fight. David Branch. Forget about the Rockhold fight. Go back and watch his WSO of days where he was a 2-weight champion. I mean, he's very dangerous, very great grappler, got good strikes. The Jocko fight, in his return to the UFC wasn't the most exciting, but I think this Thiago Santos is a perfect fight to bring out, and David Branch. And Santos is on a knockout winning streak right now, but I think Branch is he's a big middleweight, and if he can get Santos to the ground, he can get that. I think he could win by TKO or submission.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Branch right now on this one. I think he's going to go first or second round stoppage.
Wow, yeah. That sounds good to me, man. That sounds good to me. I think I'll agree with you there.
Somebody's got to stop the knockouts coming from that. No, but I mean, I think, and Santos he could probably catch him, but I mean, I think, Branch will definitely have urgency in the fact that he knows he needs to get back on track, and he's got the grappling to do so.
And then just real quick, a couple more names on the card. They got Aljamain Sterling, Brett Johns.
That's a good one.
Corey Anderson, Patrick Cummins. A couple other good fights on the card. Definitely most excited, probably in my opinion, for the top two.
Yeah. Those are pay-per-view fights right there.
Oh, easily.
The Patrick Cummins, Corey Anderson definitely needs a win, and Patrick Cummins is a very strong wrestler, and I mean, I think he could definitely get at least a decision in this. His last fight was against Jean Vellante, and he looked really good in there, and that was tough for both of them because I think both of them were friends before, so that's always awkward. Aljamain looking to get back on the win track. He had that quick knockout loss by Marlon Morales. It was bad. So, but we're gonna wrap things up here on MMA on Air, and
awesome show.
Man. Awesome show. A lot of great fights, and stay tuned. We got more shows to come, and you guys have a good Friday night.
Y'all take care.